The world is hurting right now, and it's time to rise up. As we lift ourselves up in body, mind, and spirit, we can reach out to others and be a light in a sea of darkness. Welcome to the Movement for Global Health with your host, Dr. Mary Zennett.
The back wall of the library is a group of banners dedicated to people who have made a radical change in the world. And on May 16th, 2023, the newest banner dedicated to Sam Castor was revealed. Sam is the founder of Manna Relief, the founder of the Hope Movement, and the founder of Alovea. And the Foxes have recognized his global contribution to helping malnourished children around the world.
We are here today with Sam Castor, a social entrepreneur truly with a heart for humanity. Sam's mission is to eradicate global childhood malnutrition. And that's one serving at a time. So Sam, it's an absolute privilege to have you here today.
Well, thank you, Mary. It's great to be here.
It's such a big this is a huge undertaking, and you made a solid start. Can you share with the audience, to summarize what you've done to date about this global crisis, global childhood malnutrition?
Well, Mary, what we found early on is, and this is 25 years ago, when I started my not-for-profit Manna Relief, to provide nourishment, advanced nourishment to these kids in need. We found that kids all over the world struggle with three things: malnourishment, poor sanitation, and lack of medical access care. And so the combination of those three things are the root causes of almost all disease and death in these children. And so we looked at is what is the most impactful thing that we could possibly do to these children, because most of these kids, they don't die of malnutrition, they don't die of poor sanitation. What they die of is the effects of those on their immune system. So these are immune deficiency related conditions. And so we thought the most effective way is optimize their immune responses, regardless of what their circumstances are. And what we found is that in these developing countries, if you can do that to a child, it's the difference between life and death.
Which is just incredible. And you know what? In this country, we don't often connect chronic illness with the immune system. When we think of the immune system, we think of bacteria and viruses, but we don't realize that it's a root of all disease.
It is, according to Time magazine, chronic inflammation is the root cause of all disease, all major disease.
Exactly.
90% of the cost of our healthcare system is rooted in chronic inflammation, which is an immune system malfunction. The immune system is designed to turn on and turn off pro and anti-inflammatory responses. But because of all the environmental issues that we deal with and stress and poor nutrition, we get this constant, chronic inflammatory response in our body, which eventually starts attacking healthy cells and tissues, which is the root of autoimmunity. And that is what leads to every major chronic condition. So you're not looking to boost the immune system. That is not there's a lot of immune boosting type products, especially over 1,000 came about during the COVID pandemic, because everybody realized that those at greatest risk were those that had poor functioning immune systems. But it's not about boosting your immune system, because that implies that you're going to turn on the front phase, which is pro-inflammatory. That is not what you want to do. Right. You want to bring balance and function back into the immune system. And you have to start at the root cause of that, which is activating those white blood cells in your body that manage chronic inflammation and the entire immune response to whether it's aberrant cells like in cancer or things like that, or viruses, like you said, pathogens, or chronic inflammation.
Right. So whatever it is, you're looking to balance. You're balancing
the immune system. Yeah, we call it immune optimization, because what you want is, you want it to turn on when it's proper. You want it to turn off, appropriately, so that you don't get that imbalance, because there's the cascading effect of that goes all the way through the immune system. Starts with macrophages, the large white blood cells that basically orchestrate all this, goes down to T cells that have, pro and inflammatory responses. And if you don't bring balance back into that, in fact, you mentioned Dr. John a few minutes ago in his research. The latest research he put out showed that, these pro and anti-inflammatory T cells are way out of whack in these Alzheimer patients. They're imbalanced towards pro-inflammatory responses, which is consistent with what Time Magazine said is the root cause of everything.
Wow. So here we're talking about dementia, but what is the root? Inflammation.
Right. Yeah, and that's, again, when Time Magazine did its cover story on the root cause of all evil, in terms of disease and death.
Yes.
It just said this persistent, low-grade inflammatory response in the body. Again, that's a result of too much stress, too much poor nutrition, too many toxins in our environment. Some of this stuff you just can't get away from. And that's what we found with these kids all over the world, Mary, is that they just couldn't get away from it. So we gave them nature's most powerful immune optimizing technology, and we've sent out over 200 million daily servings of that technology to the world's most medically fragile children. And we've just seen incredible results.
Wow. I want our listeners to take that in. 200 million.
Yes.
Servings of immune optimizing support. Now, can you share with us, so your nonprofit is Manna Relief. Is that correct? And I remember years ago, reading and listening to stories about these little children in orphanages all over the world that you and your wife were supporting. You were giving them this optimal immune support. And we would read these stories like in Hungary, and the headmaster would call you and say, please, whatever you're doing, send more, because the winters are so harsh. Without your support, the children are not going to make it.
Yeah, the very first orphanage that we supported was in Romania. And they were losing 30 to 40 kids a year to, immune deficiency related conditions.
Right.
And I was just talking to the head of that organization, and she was sharing with me what their biggest challenge was, which is the health of their children. And I said, well, I have licensed the technology that I think will make a big difference in these kids' lives. And that was the very first time that we actually did that on these, vulnerable, medically fragile children. We did it for a year. The end of the year came and she said, our kids are healthier than we've ever seen them. And for the first time in over a decade, not one child died in our organization. And everybody that we're networked with in the orphanage industry all over the world wants to know how can they get access to this.
Mm-hmm.
And so over the next few years, we started working with heads of state of developing nations, presidents like in Uganda, in Mexico, places like that, top doctors and hospitals. In Africa, we were mandated in hospitals that took care of kids with AIDS, not because we cure AIDS with this technology, but when you maximize the child's immune response to whatever the assault is, their quality of life goes sky high. And so, pretty soon the demand completely outpaced our capacity to raise money to provide the product to all the kids in the world. 7 billion children a year die, Mary, of immune deficiency related issues. That's our target. I mean, that's what we've got to get to.
How many? Say it again, please.
7 million children a year.
7 million children die every year.
Yes, of immune deficiency related conditions.
And speaking of AIDS, I remember you had a little article and there was pictures of children that were born of mothers with AIDS in Africa. Well, I'll never forget it because these babies were tiny, extremely low birth weight, extremely fragile. And then it said you gave a small amount of the immune modulator, the Acemannan, and they flourished.
Yeah, exactly. One of the leading AIDS doctors in all of Africa was a Dr. Benakinga. You probably remember Ben. And he said nothing ever affected these kids with AIDS from a quality of life perspective like this Acemannan technology. And that he mandated it in hospitals everywhere that were taking care of kids. It didn't matter what their conditions were: malaria, AIDS, sickle cell anemia, which is a gene-mediated disorder. All of these kids responded to a better functioning immune system.
It's when you see it, I mean, it's just incredible. These tiny babies. And then I remember you sent pictures that graduated grammar school. They graduated high school. And it was like, wow, wow. And so, Sam, it leaves us with, what do we do with this incredible information? And then how do we get it out to more kids?
Well, it's kind of interesting. So we've mentioned the name of the technology. It's called Acemannan, which is a generic name for a stabilized polysaccharide that naturally occurs in the aloe vera plant. But you have to extract it and stabilize it, or it denatures in about 24 hours. So when that was discovered and patents were filed all over the world, I remember reading the first use patent. So you get processing patents that protect your process for stabilized. But the first use patents covered this. It says it's effective in the treatment of any condition that requires the immune system intervention for full recovery. And you go, well, what conditions would those be? The answer is every single one of them. There is no condition, poor health condition, that does not require the immune system's response for recovery. And so I licensed that technology for Manna Relief and took it all over the world. But again, the demand outpaced the capacity to raise money. And one of the distribution partners for us around the world, some of these heads of state, was in Mexico. Former president of Mexico, Vicente Fox. And he introduced me to this concept called social entrepreneurship, social business. And he said, the whole world is in need of your technology. Why don't you create a for-profit company to sell this into developed nations of the world and use the profits from that to fund and provide sustainable funding to your not-for-profit Manna Relief work? And it was like, that's brilliant. So I went to Mexico to the first international symposium on social entrepreneurship, learned the mechanics of how all that worked. And in 2020, opened up a for-profit company called Alovea, Alovea, And we are now distributing that same exact technology to consumers who are concerned about their health and want the best patient outcomes if they are already health challenged. And every time we sell a bottle of product, we donate a bottle, the same amount, 28-day supply to a child in need. And since I've done that, Mary, we've generated over 50 million daily servings and paid for it, through that revenue stream that's created by our for-profit. So it's a much better way rather than just always having to beg for money, every day of your life.
That is incredible. So we're gonna have the link below, and but it's Alovea.
Yes.
We want our listeners to know and check it out. And there's tons of great information on the site, tons. Now, my understanding with Alovea, you have functional food, functional beverages, and to be real honest with you, one of the biggest health crises today is soda.
Yeah.
So many people drink so much soda, and this is not good for you. It is not good for you.
Well, if you cross over from soda into energy drinks, you go from bad to worse. It's the number one reason kids go to emergency rooms in the world today is the consumption of energy drinks. Full of caffeine, full of sugar, those types of things. And a recent study came out that showed that those energy drinks contribute to things like ADHD, deterioration of the ability to think and focus and all those. So a lot of neurological challenges. And so we came up with a line of functional foods and functional drinks. And all functional means is that you take a whole food substance to make a food or a drink out of it, and you add advanced nutrition to it to accelerate a desired impact with that drink. Not only does it taste good, but for instance, it turns your brain on for function. And anyway, so yeah, and we do whole food vitamin mineral extracts. Believe it or not, that's almost impossible to find in the market. 95% of all vitamins sold are synthetic. I did a video not too long ago, and I said, for all you health conscious warriors out there, answer this following multiple choice question. Are 95% of all the vitamins sold made from fruits, vegetables, or petroleum? And if you guess petroleum, give yourself some bonus points. If you're consuming petroleum, take some points away. So it was discovered in the 90s that synthetic vitamins actually increase the risk of disease and death. Counter to, and of course, synthetic vitamins came from the pharmaceutical industry to answer the call for more nutrition in your daily diet. But they oversold the prospects of synthetics. And so when large population studies came out showing that high doses of vitamin E, beta carotene, vitamin A actually enhanced the risk of disease and death, it was kind of a shock to the industry. Big Pharma just dumped more money into the promotion of synthetics, and they haven't skipped a beat. It's a $50 billion a year industry today. But we say enough to synthetics. We got enough garbage out there in the food we eat, the air we breathe, the water we drink, that we don't need to add insult to injury by taking synthetic nutrients. The first attempt to overcome that was sort of raw fruit and vegetable extract, capsules. The challenge is they weren't standardized with vitamins and minerals. So you had no idea. It looked good on the label, fruits and vegetables. Right. But when you get right down to it, it might have had 1% of your daily requirement of ascorbic acid, for instance, or vitamin C. So we found a technology that allows us to find the most nutritionally dense food products and actually use those food extracts to get standardized levels of vitamins and minerals.
Mhm.
So those are the types of things that we look at, Mary. We look at what in nature provides the best prevention of chronic inflammatory responses in the body. There's been a lot of research on curcumin, for instance. Problem with curcumin is it's fat soluble, so it's only about 2 to 3% bioavailable. So it does extremely well in a test tube. But when you put it in a biological system, like a human body, nothing gets to the cells. And so we found a molecule that is in that same family, only instead of coming from turmeric, it comes from the beet. And it's called a betalain. And betalins are highly bioavailable. And research has shown it can reduce, the biomarkers of chronic inflammation by 48% in just 10 days. So, those are the technologies that we look for. We get proprietary access to those technologies. We make them available to the public so that we can share that same advanced nutritional support to the world's most vulnerable children.
Wow. So again, anyone that purchases a product, whatever the product is, say you've got those nutrition bars, you buy a box, the equivalent value then is donated to a child in need.
Yeah, so if there's a month's supply in the box you buy, a child gets a month's supply of this advanced immune support called Acemannan. Exactly.
Wow.
If you buy 2 bottles of product, 2 children get nourished.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So what we're going to do, we'll have the link for Alovea at the bottom. I will tell you, I think it's our listeners in their best interest to hop on and listen to the emails. There's a ton of really good information. And then people can decide hey, we would benefit from this. Let's try this out. And you've got a wealth of products and research. You've done a tremendous amount of research.
Exactly. The company that first discovered Acemannan did $100 million worth of research, defining its mechanism of action and how it worked in human physiology and how it was non-toxic and could be integrated with any other kind of healthcare system or therapy. So yeah, there's a ton of research. Let me just say this, Mary, for your listeners. What's amazing about this molecule is when I first met the doctors that discovered, I said, is there anything else like this in nature? Like this molecular structure of Acemannan? They said it only occurs one other place. That's in human breast milk. So when a woman becomes pregnant, she starts converting glucose into a sugar called mannose to make these polysaccharide chains that are just like in the aloe vera plant to optimize the child's immune response to the environment that they're coming into. And I just thought there's got to be some value to matching what is, and by the way, that molecule is missing in every other form of mammal milk. Only human milk can produce, large amounts of that polysaccharide.
Really?
So that was fascinating to me. And that's one of the first things that I saw that really captured my imagination. If we could take the essence of human breast milk in terms of its impact on a brand new child's immune system, just think of what we could do for all the kids that never got access to that.
Exactly. Now, I see that you have Mighty Milk. So tell us about that. Does that contain, is that powdered? Does it contain the Acemannan?
Yes. So what Mighty Milk is, in Mexico, President Fox helped us connect with a gentleman that was in the milk producing business and powdered milk. And so it has the proteins and the vitamins and minerals. And to get a more complete nourishment package to these children, we put Acemannan in the milk, in the powdered milk. So the kids get the protein, they get the healthy fats, they get the vitamins and minerals, and they get the Acemannan immune support. So it's probably the most complete food product that these kids could get access to. And of course, milk is the #1 food commodity for children any place in the world.
But again, not all milk has Acemannan in it.
Oh, no milk has Acemannan in it.
Exactly.
Exactly.
But
No,
your Mighty Milk has Acemannan in it.
So that's why it's called Mighty Milk. Exactly.
But I think it's important for the listeners to really grasp this. It's so huge. And you know what? The results speak for themselves. When you think of the number of children around the world living in very adverse conditions, but that they thrive. They thrive.
You know, Mary, it's amazing when you start saving children's lives, all boundaries disappear. You know, whether they're religious in nature or political in nature or whatever. It's like we moved a lot of product into North Korea during their famine.
Oh.
How do we get into North Korea? We were saving the lives of their children.
Right.
And we did that through the Red Cross. We go into Muslim nations, you know.
Right.
How do we get it? As a Christian organization, how do we do that? Because our heart's desire is to save the lives of these kids, you know. And so that transitions everything out there that is a block that would get in the way of our distribution.
Exactly. It's absolutely remarkable. So let's drill down. We talked about Acemannan, and I know our listeners have heard about Acemannan because they've heard about the research where the Acemannan is the key ingredient that was helping the patients with Alzheimer's. And what I'm hearing you say, across the board, there isn't a condition that it doesn't help.
Yeah, again, what's fascinating about Acemannan is it's not a drug. So a drug alters the physiology of a disease process or a biomarker of a disease. That's what a drug does, to give your body the capacity or the time to try to heal itself. So Acemannan, if you put it in a petri dish with the AIDS virus, it wouldn't do anything. If you put it in a petri dish with cancer, it wouldn't do anything. But if you put it in a biological system that has an immune support, it does everything. So it really doesn't matter what the condition is. And that's what these individual doctors are doing in their particular disciplines. They look at it in relationship to people with Alzheimer's or people with cancer or people with viral infections or whatever. And in all cases, you see a dramatic quality of life response. And I keep using that word quality of life to distinguish it from a drug effect. So a drug is used for the treatment of a condition, and a nutrient is used to support the body's natural ability to heal itself. And there's a big difference between those two.
There's a huge difference. That's right, Sam. We're not treating disease here.
Right.
We're supporting the structure.
We're optimizing the immune system.
Optimizing. I love it. Listeners, take that one home. Optimizing the immune system. So then what is the Hope Movement?
Well, the Hope Movement is that's just a brand for everything that we're doing.
Okay.
So, you know, we're bringing hope to people all over the world. I mean, listen, in the United States, we spend twice as much as any other country on sick care. We call it healthcare, but it's really sick care. We consume 50% of all the pharmaceutical drugs that are sold in the world, with less than 5% of the world's population. And yet we rank last in health of population of the top 19 countries in the world. So we're spending a lot of money on things that really aren't producing the results that we all want. You know, how do you get a best patient outcome? And we're not saying medicine's bad or the doctors are bad. I mean, there's a place for everything. It's like Dr. Mimi Ganeri, who's at the Scripps Clinic of Integrative Medicine, said, you know, there's a time and a place for a bypass, and there's a time and place for essential fatty acids. You know, and medical professionals should know the difference.
That's right.
And so it's an integrative approach to healthcare, where you take the best that nutrition has to offer to support your body's normal functions of defense and recovery, and combine it with the best critical care. You know, someone comes in with an accident, they've been in an accident, or their heart's failed, or whatever the deal is.
Exactly.
I mean, medicine is amazing at its capacity to save a human being. They're not very good at addressing chronic and infectious conditions. You know, that's what the human body does better than anything. There's a whole new movement, Mary, in cancer research called immunotherapy. And immunotherapy is based on the fact that nothing fights cancer more effectively than the human immune system.
Wow.
You know, you can't burn it, poison it, or cut it as effectively as the immune system can identify it and kill it. So why shouldn't we put all of our research efforts into finding ways of supporting our body's normal functions of defense and recovery? That's what immunotherapy is all about.
Wow.
And they're finding incredible technologies and getting the best results ever in terms of cancer research.
Wow. So yeah, for our listeners, keep your ears. That was a light bulb. Immunotherapy.
Exactly.
Read, listen, learn. Yeah. And I imagine there's a lot of research going on right now. And
there's actually been, I mean, you might have heard during COVID the term monoclonal antibodies.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
You know, that's immunotherapy. So when the macrophage, this surveillance molecule cell in your body, you know, sees the damaged or diseased cell, it attaches to it, it takes the zip code, if you will, of that cell and sends it to a B cell. A B cell makes an antibody that comes back and attaches and alerts the rest of the immune system to do what is necessary to fix the problem. Well, that breaks down, obviously, for people that become, you know, higher risk of illness. Right. And so whether it's cancer or viral infections, they're going in and taking these antigens off the surface of disease cells, analyzing them, developing antibodies in a lab, monoclonal antibodies, putting them back into the patient to help the immune system fulfill its function. So instead of everything breaking down, they're trying to find things that can help the immune system do what it's designed to do, which is more effective than any kind of medical treatment.
Wow.
It's fascinating, Mary.
It really is. It really is. What you're talking about is cutting edge. It is.
Absolutely.
And you know what? In the mainstream, we don't hear that much about it.
Yeah.
But if you dig a little bit.
I'm working with one of the country's best immunotherapists. She's at the Mayo Clinic. She got the first monoclonal antibody product approved for the treatment of cancer. And she said in order to maximize the efficacy of monoclonal antibodies, you need a good functioning immune system. So they're using our Acemannan to help optimize the entire immune response, so to determine if their monoclonal antibody can get even better results.
Wow.
So that's the movement that's going on under the radar right now, Mary. There's really some brilliant people looking at how do we more effectively address the global epidemic of the rise in poor health and disease. And it's got to get back to the basic foundation of the human body and its capacity to defend and repair itself.
Wow. So like you say, it's under the radar, but it's happening. It is happening.
It's there. Yeah, there's already a lot of approved immunotherapy treatments out there. And if your oncologist spots a particular type of condition, like a particular type of cancer that responds well to immunotherapy, a lot of times they'll make that referral over something that they had done traditionally because it's safer and it tends to be a lot more effective.
Right, exactly. Well, we're going to close in a minute. So Sam, anything else you want us, you're a wealth of knowledge, and this is so enlightening for all of us. So any closing words?
Listen, I know how many people are desperately looking for solutions for quality of life issues in their own family. What we've done at this company is we have accessed the world's best technologies. And they were given to us because of our social business commitment to meet the needs of these children. Like, we have the exclusive on the highest rated Acemannan technology.
Wow.
How did we get that? We didn't pay for it. It was donated to Manna Relief, so that not only could we meet the needs of these kids, but consumers who, when they purchase a bottle, would fund that activity.
Right.
So, the people that are making these discoveries and working with us for exclusivity, do it, because who doesn't want to be a part of a movement that is saving the lives of the world's most vulnerable children? So I encourage all your listeners, look us up, see the data, decide that you want to change your own life, and by doing that, you'll help us change the world.
That is so awesome. And again, heartfelt thanks for all you do. You've done so much. Your wife has done so much, and will continue to do. It's just, it warms our hearts. And now we need to take action.
Absolutely.
So, all right. Thanks again, Sam. We greatly appreciate you.
Thanks, Mary. See you.
Okay.